Hello, cavemen. Tonight we will continue with the tale of a time long before screens, shoes, or shampoo. You're not scrolling through your feed anymore. You're squinting through smoke. The floor is cold rock, and your pillow is a patch of damp moss. You are a child in the Stone Age, and the day that's about to unfold, well, let's just say you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the clan, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up under animal skins that don't smell great. In fact, they smell a bit like the creature they used to belong to. If that creature had rolled in dirt, sweat and smoke for weeks, the first breath you take is full of ash. Someone forgot to open the top of the hut last night, and now everything your throat, your hair, your thoughts feels a little grey. Next to you, your younger brother kicks in his sleep. He always dreams about running, and he always runs toward you. You shove him back gently with your knee and sit up, careful not to knock over the bowl of yesterday's half-eaten roots. The air inside the shelter is thick. Above you, animal bones hang from twine made of twisted sinew, rattling softly in the breeze like sleepy wind chimes. They're not for decoration, they're protection charms, or at least that's what the elders say. One femur still has a bit of marrow crusted inside, which your sister tried to gnaw open last week when she thought no one was looking. You rub your eyes and peek out through the flap. The sun hasn't risen fully, but the sky is bleeding orange and purple across the horizon. The fire pit outside has turned to a mound of quiet, glowing coals, and your father is already up, poking it with a stick that's as tall as you are. Your feet hit the ground with a slap. It's dirt, but in the mornings it might as well be stone. You curl your toes and wait for the sting to pass. There's no time to stretch. You hear grunts, not bear grunts, human ones. The adults are already moving around, sorting hides, checking traps, boiling water, spitting. The first task of your day, finding your shirt, which might have been dragged into the corner by the dog, or by that strange wind spirit your aunt keeps warning you about. You mutter a half-formed curse at whichever it was, and crawl over to retrieve it. Dressing isn't like today. There are no closets, no favourite hoodies, and no laundry days. There's just a fur tunic that once belonged to your cousin before he outgrew it or died. The sleeves are uneven. One smells like goat, the other smells like last week's fire. A rock tumbles outside, and you freeze. For a second you think it might be a predator. Saber-tooth, maybe, or a hungry bear. But it's just old Muta, your grandmother, dragging a bundle of sticks behind her. She's still the only person in the camp who can walk without grunting. She says it's because she sleeps with her legs tied straight. No one's dared to ask why. You step outside. The world feels bigger than it did last night. The sky is endless. A hawk glides overhead. You wonder what it's like to be a bird above the trees, the fire, the shouting, the chores. But you're not a bird. You're a Stone Age child, and you've got a full day ahead. With any luck, it'll only mostly hurt. Historians still argue whether Stone Age people were early risers, because of necessity or because of cultural rituals. Either way, you're already awake and sore, and you're not even 10 yet. You look around. The adults are busy, but the other kids are stirring too. Kima is picking her nose. Her brother is chewing on a charred stick. Normal behaviour, really. You spot your best friend across the fire circle, trying to light a twig from the embers. He sees you, winks, and holds up something small and furry. Probably dead, probably going to be breakfast. In fact, many Stone Age shelters were built low to the ground, covered in furs, hides and mud to trap heat. You wish yours trapped fewer fleas. You hear your name, well, your noise. Your name is a grunt and click combo. The elders settled on after you survived a snake bite when you were 3. They thought you were marked by the spirit of the river. You're still not sure if that's a compliment. Anyway, someone calls it and you grunt back. Day has begun. You're not allowed to eat until you've done your chores. That's the rule. It's always been the rule. And if you try to sneak a bite before the sun clears the trees, someone, probably your aunt, with a lazy eye, will throw a rock at your foot. Not to hurt you, of course, just to remind you that shame is a Stone Age tradition too. So you get moving. First stop, the dung pile. Yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. Animal droppings get collected, dried, and used as fuel for the fire. Your job is to find the fresher ones, goat or deer preferred, mammoth if you're feeling ambitious, and pile them near the drying rack. You carry a flat stone to scoop it with, but eventually it ends up on your hands anyway. You're 8 years old and smell like a stable. No one is surprised. You wave off the flies with one hand while scooping with the other. Kima joins you, dragging a piece of bark behind her like a sled. Race you, she says. You both know it's not a real race, unless someone ends up crying, bleeding, or both. As you haul your load back to camp, you pause to scratch your arm with a flint shard. It's dull, but it works. This shard, it used to belong to your uncle. He once killed a lynx with it, or so he claimed, before the lynx showed up again and chased him up a tree. You're still not sure which part of that story is true. Back at the fire, a few of the men are sharpening spears. The stone edges flash in the morning light. You sneak a peek. There's something hypnotic about the rhythm, the scrape, the pause, the breath. It's like music, only sharper and more judgmental. You crouch beside them, trying to look casual. One man glances at you, then tosses you a broken flint tip. Practice, he says. You nod solemnly and pretend this was your plan all along. You sit cross-legged and press the edge against another stone. It doesn't make the same clean sound, but you keep going. You're not just sharpening rock, you're sharpening your future. At least that's what your grandmother says, or grunts. Her wisdom often sounds like disapproval. Suddenly a voice calls out from the trees. You freeze. Everyone freezes. It's a bird mimic, one of the older boys, signaling that something's nearby. Maybe prey, maybe danger, maybe both. You drop the flint and scamper toward the trees, heart racing. If it's an animal, maybe you'll see the kill. If it's danger, maybe you'll be the first one to spot it and become a legend before your voice even drops. Turns out it's just a deer, half-starved, limping, probably left behind by the herd. Still, it's exciting. One of the hunters draws back his spear, but the deer vanishes into the underbrush before he can throw. You pretend you weren't disappointed. It was small, you say. Not worth it. No one answers. They all saw your eyes widen like a startled cave rabbit. Historians still argue whether children in prehistoric times were deliberately taught survival skills from an early age, or simply absorb them through observation and trial. Either way, your trial is happening daily, and your observation skills, let's just say they're improving slowly. After the false alarm, you return to camp. The chores aren't done just because you got distracted. You still have to help clean fish skins, carry water, and gather firewood. You try to complain once, just to test your luck. Your father raises an eyebrow and tightens the leather around his spear. Message received. Quirky fact: flint knives were sometimes shaped more for symbolic reasons than practical ones. One archaeologist even found a blade shaped like a fish, though whether it was ceremonial or someone's idea of humor remains hotly debated. By the time the sun clears the ridge, you've already bled twice, bruised a knee, and stepped on a snail that squelched in a way that made your stomach turn. Still, the day has only just begun, and no one has yelled at you too much yet. You stop for a second near the edge of camp, and pick up a pebble, smooth, round, warm from the sun. You pocket it. Why? No reason, just a feeling. Maybe later it'll be lucky. Maybe later it'll be sharp enough to matter. You look around and take a deep breath. The air is getting warmer, and the birds are starting to scream because they never sing, only scream. Somewhere nearby, a baby wails. A dog barks back. Someone starts singing a tune that only has 2 notes, repeated forever. And you You go back to scraping hide with your broken flint, hands sticky, eyes half dreaming of what it might be like to throw a real spear and have it land. The line between play and survival is blurry. By midday, the chores are done, or at least done enough to escape the grunts of disapproval. That means you're free at last to play. But don't get the wrong idea. There are no swings, no dolls, no tree houses or plastic swords. Your playground is the woods, and your toys are rocks, sticks, and the bones of things that didn't play smart enough. You and the other kids dart through the tall grass like a pack of wild animals, except less graceful and a lot louder. Someone shouts the start of a hunting game. It's simple. One of you pretends to be prey, the rest are the hunters. The prey always ends up in a mud hole. That's just tradition. Today, it's you. You dash through a thicket, heart pounding, pretending to be a deer, but very aware you could trip at any moment and smash your future chewing teeth into a root. A stick comes flying past your ear. That wasn't in the rules. I'm a deer, not a boar, you yell. Someone laughs and throws another. You climb a small boulder, trying to get elevation like the older boys do when they're hunting for real. From here, you can see Kima sneaking left. Clever, she's trying to flank you, but she forgets about the mud pit, sinks in up to her shins. You win, technically. Still, your victory comes with a price. Scraped elbows, a bruise on your hip, and a tick you'll find later on your neck. Glorious. You regroup. Everyone's panting. One of the younger kids is crying. Again, the older kids debate whether they should teach him to be quiet like a fox, or just bury him a little bit and let him learn from fear. Joking, probably. Mostly. Historians still argue whether children in early human tribes had structured social roles, or simply found their place through these kinds of rough games. Either way, the rules are unspoken, the hierarchy is constantly shifting, and everything you do feels like it matters more than it probably does. You pick up a long branch, smooth and strong. It could be a spear, a walking stick, or the staff of a great hunter king. Right now, it's mostly just a stick. You whack a bush with it anyway, it feels good. Then someone dares you to throw it. Like a real hunter, they say. You know how this ends, you always know. But you wind up, hurl the stick with all your might, and hear a thud, followed by a grunt. You've hit Kima in the shoulder. She stares at you, wide-eyed like a bear, deciding if it wants to maul or retreat. You start to mumble something that sounds like, "Sorry," but she's already chasing you with a fistful of mud. You run, fast. In fact, many prehistoric tools were discovered not because they were buried carefully, but because they were discarded mid-use or broken during play. Archaeologists still find tiny flint flakes around areas believed to be children's zones. Not sacred, not adult, just where the kids got bored and made noise. Eventually you all collapse under the shade of a tree. Someone pulls out a dead beetle and pretends it's a sacred offering. Someone else tells a ghost story about a baby who never grew up and now lives in the trees, whispering names into ears while people sleep. You close your eyes for a second, and there it is again, that strange moment of feeling like none of this is a game at all. The way the stick felt in your hand, the blood on Kima's shoulder, the way she didn't cry. You're growing up, and it's terrifying, but it's also kind of exciting. Every stubbed toe, every bruised rib, every splinter in your palm. It's a lesson, whether you want it or not. You stretch out on the dirt and feel the sun on your face. It's warm. You squint. You wonder what's for lunch. You wonder if there will be lunch. Then you wonder why no one has invented hammocks yet. Your friend beside you mutters something about becoming a hunter soon. You both go quiet for a while, just the wind in the grass, and the occasional mosquito buzzing past your ear like it owns the place. And then, of course, someone starts a fight. You smell lunch before you see it, which is impressive considering how bad your nose is after all that dirt and spear dodging. There's the scent of firewood something charred, something sour, and if you're lucky, a hint of marrow. Everyone's gathered near the main fire pit now. Some are sitting, some are squatting. No one stands unless they're in charge of the food. Those are the rules. And the person in charge today is your great aunt, who once burned her hair off cooking fish, and now gets twitchy whenever things sizzle. You slide into the crowd, nudging aside a toddler and a dog. Neither of them notices. You crane your neck for a better look. Lunch is a bone, a big one, and a handful of foraged berries. You try not to look disappointed. Someone says it's mammoth bone. Someone else says it's goat. Someone else mutters probably wolf. No one really knows. You pretend it's delicious already. Your cousin grabs a rock and starts cracking the bone to get to the marrow. He hits it wrong, and a shard flies into someone's forehead. There's a pause, then laughter, then a small argument about whether forehead cuts are signs of wisdom or just bad luck. Fact, bone marrow was one of the most calorie-rich parts of a prehistoric diet. Rich in fat, easy to extract if you knew what you were doing, and extremely valuable, especially for children who needed dense nutrition for all the falling and yelling they did. Someone finally hands you a cracked piece. You scrape the inside with your fingernail and suck the warm, fatty sludge like it's a Stone Age lollipop. It's disgusting. You love it. Next come the berries. You've had these before. They're safe, probably. Your tribe's food testing method usually involves seeing if someone older than you dies after eating something. Very scientific. You chew slowly, savouring each burst of tartness. Your friend next to you is chewing with his mouth open, trying to make everyone laugh by pretending the berries are eyeballs. You snort once, then join in. Suddenly, your uncle belches loudly and starts telling a story about how he once ate a salamander and couldn't speak for 3 days. You're not sure if it's a warning or a brag, but it's definitely lunch entertainment. Historians still argue whether early humans had set meal times or simply grazed throughout the day. Judging by today's chaos, your tribe does both. Eat fast and eat whenever someone's not looking. You finish eating and lick your fingers. The taste lingers, smoky, earthy, slightly sour. You wipe your hands on your tunic, which already smells like ash and regret. The meal ends the same way it always does. Someone gets bit, someone else cries, and an elder yells something about the spirits not liking bad manners. You pretend to listen while eyeing the leftover marrow someone left unattended. You lunge, you win, you chew in victory. Quirky fact. Some archaeologists believe that children in prehistoric tribes developed their own slang and gestures, mini-languages within the tribe. You're starting to notice that too. The way you raise your eyebrows at your friend means I dare you. The way you grunt without looking means follow me. And the way you flick a pebble at someone's head means, well, it depends on the pebble. After lunch, the group scatters again. The elders sit in circles, scratching symbols into the dirt or humming strange songs. Some of the hunters sharpen tools, others mend traps. A few begin dancing slowly around a carving stone, but you're not sure if it's a ceremony or just boredom. You and your crew retreat to the edge of the clearing where the grass grows tall and the sun is half merciful. There's a patch of shade and the ground is dry enough to lie on. You flop down, the others follow. Stomachs full, feet filthy, minds buzzing. You take a deep breath and let the warmth soak into your bones. You think about the marrow, the berries, the flint, the stick fights. You think about how this day has already been strange and exhausting and somehow perfect. Then you close your eyes, just for a second, and the dreams begin creeping in. You don't mean to fall asleep, but that patch of dirt is warmer than it has any right to be, and your body's been scraping, running, and pretending not to be hungry all morning. So yeah, you drift off. It's not a deep sleep, more like a half dream, half listen kind of rest, the kind that only children and old warriors seem to master. The wind whispers through the grass. Your friend snores gently beside you, and your fingers twitch like they're still throwing spears in a dream. And then, just like that, you're awake again. Not because anyone shakes you. No, it's because of a sound, a snap. Not big enough to be a predator, but not small enough to ignore. You sit up, eyes sharp, spine stiff. Kima's already crouching behind a bush, finger to her lips. You follow her gaze. A small animal, maybe a hare, is sniffing near a fallen log. It hasn't seen you yet. This is it. The real hunting test. Well, sort of. Not like a rite of passage. But if you nail this, everyone will talk about it. And if you miss, well, they'll still talk, just with more laughter. You glance down. You've got a rock. Not the best weapon, but if your aim's good, you crawl forward, slow as moss, every inch of your body humming with nerves. You raise the rock, take aim, hold your breath, and the hare bolts. You throw anyway. The rock thuds into a tree. A bird explodes into the air, screeching. Kima groans. Your friend laughs so hard he snorts a berry out his nose. But then you hear another sound. A rustle, a snap. Not prey this time, pain. It's Oko, one of the younger kids. He's limping into view, clutching his leg. Blood streaks his shin, and there's a nasty-looking slice across his foot. You rush over. Apparently he tried to copy you, climbed a stump to throw a stick, slipped, hit the sharp edge of a broken shell. Now he's crying in that silent, hiccuping way that makes you feel older and useless at the same time. Here's where the day changes. You yell for help, and someone runs back to the main camp. Soon a few adults arrive. One of them pulls out a pouch of crushed moss. Another unwraps a piece of hide with sticky brown goop inside. No one looks panicked, but they're definitely moving faster than usual. You watch closely. The moss is packed into the wound. The brown goop, tree resin maybe, gets smeared on a strip of deer gut, then wrapped tight around the leg. Oko screams once, then goes limp. You ask, will he lose the foot? Your aunt doesn't answer. She just grunts and keeps wrapping. Fact, prehistoric people used a surprising variety of medicinal materials. Moss as bandages, tree resin as antibacterial save, and even honey for wounds. Some of it worked, some of it didn't, but they tried, constantly. Eventually, Oko is carried off, and you're left standing there, the shade now feeling colder than it did an hour ago. Kima sighs. I hate that sound. You nod. Me too. She means the sound of something tearing, something fragile. Historians still argue whether Stone Age tribes had dedicated healers, or if everyone simply knew enough to keep the group alive. Today, it looks like everyone knows just a little, and that little might be enough. The mood shifts, the play ends, the fantasy cracks. You return to camp. Your hands still smell like berries and bark, but your mind is somewhere else. You keep seeing Oko's foot. You keep wondering what happens if the moss isn't enough. That night they'll say the spirits were kind. The bleeding stopped. No fever. Not this time. But next time, you watch the adults as they pass. Scarred arms, missing fingers, a limp here, a crooked smile there. Everyone's been a Oko at some point. You just hope you're lucky when your turn comes. The smoke speaks louder than words. You're not allowed too close to the shaman's pit, not unless invited, and invitations are rare, especially for kids who still get grass stuck between their toes and mud under their eyelids. But today the smoke pulls you in. It starts with the scent burning herbs, resin, and something sharp like scorched hair or crushed beetle. It curls upward into the sky, but it also creeps sideways, slithering toward you like it knows your name. Not the grunt noise your tribe calls you, but the real name, the one you're supposed to grow into. You crouch just past the circle of stones. The elders are there, eyes half closed, mouths slightly open like they're tasting dreams. The shaman sits cross-legged, bones hanging from her neck, charcoal smeared across her cheek. She doesn't look up. but you swear she knows you're watching. Inside the fire pit, a chunk of bark burns slowly. Shapes dance through the smoke. Animals, humans, shadows of something else. The air thickens, and then the whispers begin. You can't hear words. Not exactly. It's more like ideas getting poured into your skull without your permission. A bear claw, a broken tooth, blood on a leaf, a river that knows your fears. And then just as fast, it's gone. You blink, the smoke clears. One of the elders turns and grunts, not in anger, more like acknowledgement. You've stayed too long, but you're not in trouble. Not yet. You back away slowly, heartbeat in your ears. Historians still argue whether early religious rituals were centralized around community leaders or shared among all members of the tribe. Some believe the shaman held unique spiritual power. Others suggest it was more about who could best fake a trance without falling into the fire. Fact, prehistoric humans used fire not just for warmth or cooking, but as a medium for storytelling, ritual, and social bonding. Smoke patterns, rhythmic chants, and flickering shadows were all tools to teach, to warn, and to wonder. As you retreat to the edge of camp, you find Kima chewing on a stick and humming tunelessly. You went close, she says. You nod. Did you see the deer again? No, you whisper. I saw something bigger. She raises an eyebrow. You don't elaborate, mostly because you're not sure what it was. Only that your chest still feels hollow and your hands are shaking just a little. You sit together in silence. For a while, the wind shifts. The smell of burnt resin still clings to your tunic. Later that day, an elder calls you over, not to lecture you, but to draw. She drags her fingers through the dust, sketching spirals and lines, dots and curves. She hums a rhythm as she moves. Then, without warning, she presses your hand into the earth and traces around it with red ochre. You ask what it means. She shrugs and mutters, "You're here now." It's not an answer, but it's something. You stare at your handprint, bold against the dirt, and wonder how long it'll last before the wind erases it. Quirky fact. Some cave paintings show children's handprints, often smaller, messier, and placed higher on the walls than expected. No one knows if that means the children were lifted up, or if they just really liked jumping while painting. You return to your fire circle and sit, the scent of the smoke still clinging to your skin. You're not sure if you're supposed to feel different now, but you do. The world hasn't changed, but maybe, just maybe, you have. Pain, in the Stone Age, is just part of the scenery. It starts with a scream, not yours, thankfully. One of the bigger boys was climbing the tree near the cave ridge, trying to show off. He slipped. You didn't see the fall, but you heard the snap. Everyone did. It sounded like a wet branch breaking inside a bone. And today, it's back, in the form of cracked skin, swollen ankles, and a foot that probably wasn't meant to bend that way. Now he's lying on the ground, pale and panting, while the adults gather like wolves around a wounded deer. The men argue. One says the bone's broken clean. Another says it's cursed. A woman holds up a bundle of dried herbs and says something about the river spirits being angry again. Someone else starts chewing a root and spits it into their hand. Yes, it's going on the wound. You hang back, watching. You try not to gag. Fact, chewed plants were often used in wound care, since saliva helps break down plant fibers and activate natural compounds. You don't really care. You just don't want Spitfoot to become your new nickname. The boy doesn't cry much. He groans, grits his teeth, and tries not to look at the crooked angle of his leg. You feel something weird, something between pride and fear, because one day that could be you, will be you. They lift the injured boy onto a hide and carry him into the shadow of the biggest shelter. The shaman's there now. Her face is smeared with something black and glossy. She holds a bone charm in one hand. and something sharp in the other. A few kids hover nearby. One suggests cutting the leg off to stop the ghost from climbing higher. You give him a sideways glare. He shrugs. That's what my uncle said happened to him. Historians still argue whether early humans understood infection or simply reacted to visible symptoms. Some tribes may have linked wounds to spirits, while others instinctively understood the signs of rot and fever. You sit beside a patch of stones and try stacking them. It's the kind of thing toddlers do. It helps you not think. So you and the other kids drift away, slowly, nervously. The mood is different now. The game of mourning, the laughter, the dancing shadows of the fire, they all feel distant, like a story someone else told. You're not allowed to watch what comes next. Kima sits next to you, silent. Then, after a long pause, what if the spirits do choose? You don't answer. Because, deep down, you wonder too. Later, when the sun dips lower, the boy re-emerges, carried again, his legs being splintered with 2 sticks and tightly bound in rawhide. His face is pale, but he's alive. That's enough. Someone pokes the fire, someone sharpens a blade, a toddler starts crying because a beetle crawled on her foot. Normal. And just like that, life resumes. And somehow, that gives you strength. That night, as you sit by the fire chewing a piece of root that tastes like wet ash, you look at the boy again. He's trying not to look helpless. He's failing, but he's trying. Quirky fact, in some regions, archaeologists have found early prosthetic devices, simple wooden pegs or splints, suggesting that prehistoric people cared for the injured long term. Compassion, it turns out, is older than civilization. For now, you think about your own body, your feet, your arms, your skin. Everything is fragile. Everything can break. And yet here you are, still intact, still learning. You don't know if that's true, but after lunch, your body goes still, your eyes flutter shut, and the earth itself seems to hum beneath your back. You're lying in the dirt again, not quite asleep, but not awake either. A kind of drifting, where time folds in on itself, and dreams spill over into memory. They say animals speak to those who listen, and then you see it. The air smells of dust and burnt grass. Kima is still asleep beside you, drooling slightly, but you can't shake the feeling. That bird wasn't from this world. That was a totem, a sign. A bird, enormous, but gentle. Its wings are made of smoke, and its eyes are burning embers. It hovers above you, watching, waiting. Then it lands, without a sound, and leans down until its beak touches your forehead. You wake up gasping. Maybe you're special, maybe you've been chosen, or maybe you're just dehydrated and slept on a beetle. Still you get up and wander toward the edge of camp, where the elder with the milky eye is crushing berries into dye. She looks up, narrows her good eye, and says, "Dream again." You nod. Without asking, she dips her fingers into the red dye and begins drawing across your chest lines. Dots, curves, the symbols itch, but you sit still. When she's done, she leans in and whispers, "You're watched now. Better walk like someone who's worth watching." She gestures for you to sit. You don't know what that means exactly, but it sounds important and slightly terrifying. You spend the rest of the afternoon acting just a little different. Fact, many Stone Age cultures believed in animal guides, spiritual protectors that revealed themselves in visions or dreams. These animals weren't pets, they were omens, ancestors, or spirits of the land itself. No, you say, just thinking. You walk slower, straighter. You stop slouching. You squint at the trees like you expect something to emerge from them. Your friends think you're being weird. One of them throws a rock at you. You pretend not to notice. At one point, Kima asks if you're sick. Quirky fact. In some cave systems, children's footprints are found deeper than adults, suggesting They were taken into sacred spaces for rituals or storytelling. Some even show signs of dancing, others of crawling alone. "Birds," you reply, and leave it at that. She snorts. "About what?" It doesn't. That night, during a lull in the wind, you sneak out of the camp just a little, not far, just to the ridge where the moss grows thick and the trees lean like gossiping elders. You sit there watching the sky turn deep blue, waiting for the bird to return. But the wind rustles through the grass in a way that sounds like wings. Historians still argue whether prehistoric dreams were seen as divine messages or just mental noise. Either way, your people treat them with reverence, or at least enough reverence to draw on your skin with crushed berries. As the stars begin to appear one by one, you think about what it would mean to be chosen, not just to survive out here, but to belong to something bigger, an animal, a spirit, a destiny that runs deeper than bones. And you wonder, what does the bird want? The best toys can kill you. That's not a warning, it's more of a design feature, at least in your world. You're sitting near the fire pit again, a bit restless, when one of the older kids hands you a knife. Well, not a knife exactly. A sharp flake of obsidian tied to a stick with gut string. It's uneven, and the blade wobbles slightly when you twist your wrist. But it's yours now, your first real tool. A weapon, a toy, a lesson waiting to happen. You try not to look too impressed. "Whittle," he says. "Start with this." He drops a chunk of wood in front of you, dry and soft enough to scrape without needing full-grown muscles. You sit cross-legged and begin shaving the edges. Then you slip. At first it's satisfying. The wood curls like bark noodles. You make a dent, then a line, then a deep groove. It starts to look like something, maybe a spear tip, or a snake, or a really angry stick. The obsidian edge bites your thumb, fast and silent. You hiss and pull your hand back. The cut isn't deep, but it stings, like the spirits themselves are laughing at you. You glance around. No one notices. Or worse, they do notice, but pretend not to. You've entered the next phase of childhood, quiet injuries, and earned silence. Blood wells up like a little red smile. The other kids are nearby, lost in their own chaos. Kima is trying to make a flute out of a hollow bone. Another boy is throwing tiny stones at a lizard to train his aim. A girl is building a figure from sticks and clay. It has 4 arms and no head. You don't ask. Fact: obsidian blades can be sharper than modern surgical steel. Early humans prized it for tools, weapons, and occasionally very regrettable arts and crafts. You wrap your thumb in a scrap of hide and keep carving. Quirky fact: miniature weapons have been found in prehistoric sites. Tiny bows, axes, and spears, clearly too small for adult use. Whether they were toys, training tools, or ceremonial objects, well, that's still up for debate. You pause your carving and flex your hand. The pain's already fading. Your thumb throbs, but your pride is mostly intact. That's the important part. The line between play and preparation is blurry and always has been. What starts as pretend can become real in a heartbeat. One moment you're mimicking the hunters, and the next you're learning how to keep your blood inside your body. A gift, a weapon, a symbol. You decide it's a magic staff, the kind the smoke bird might leave behind. You turn your stick spear in your hand and wonder what it could be, what it should be. You nod. So am I. Kima looks over and snorts. It's lopsided. Historians still argue whether early humans encouraged creative expression in children or simply tolerated it until they could swing a club properly. Evidence of art, symbols, and figurines suggests that even the youngest members of a tribe had roles in storytelling and ritual. And then you stand. You scratch one last mark into the wood, a spiral, like the ones the elder traced in the dirt. The stick is complete. You don't know what it is, but it's yours, and it's sharp enough to matter. Just like you. The hunt returns before you're ready. The first sign is silence. That eerie stillness that wraps the camp like a heavy fur just before something changes. You feel it in your spine first, then in the glances the adults exchange, short and sharp, like flint strikes. Then come the footsteps. Not frantic, not tired, just heavy. The hunters are back. They don't speak. One carries a slung haunch of meat, deer, maybe. Another drags a tangle of rope and bone that might have been a snare. A third limps, blood seeping through a cut on his leg. No one asks what happened, not yet. You rush toward the clearing, where the trees spit out the tribe's best and bravest. They emerge one by one, cloaked in dirt and blood, and something else, something quieter, a weight, not grief, exactly, but not joy either. You edge closer. There's no cheering, no celebration. This wasn't a victory. It was survival, barely. Fact. Hunting was a dangerous and uncertain endeavor in the Stone Age. A good day meant feeding the camp. A bad day meant limping home, or not at all. And even good days came with bruises and cracked ribs. One hunter, your uncle, has a cut above his eye. He doesn't even flinch when someone pours water over it. Another spits into the fire, muttering something about the shadows being wrong, whatever that means. You try to read their faces. Then something sacred. They lay the deer in the center of the fire circle, not on the fire, not yet. First, there's the offering. The shaman steps forward, dragging a pouch of ground herbs and ash. She sprinkles the mix on the deer's forehead, then whispers over it. A chant, a thank you, a bribe, maybe, to keep the forest from taking more next time. Historians still argue whether early rituals around hunting were spiritual ceremonies, or just instinctive attempts to make sense of chaos. Either way, your people never eat without giving something back first. You sit on your knees beside the circle, watching. You're not allowed to touch the meat, but you are allowed to observe. And you do, closely. How they slice, how they pull the hide, where the blade sinks first, how the fat peels away from muscle. You store it all away, like secrets in your bones. You catch your reflection in a pool of water beside the circle. Dirt on your face, a smudge of red on your chin. When did that get there? Quirky fact? Children in many prehistoric societies likely learned butchering techniques by watching and mimicking early versions of apprenticeships with blood-stained fingers and silent instruction. You glance at the meat again. It smells strong, metallic, not unpleasant, but real. You don't answer, because you're starting to understand that bigger often means deadlier, and that sometimes just returning at all is the best kind of success. Someone starts singing a low, simple melody. It's not quite happy, but it's grounding, familiar. Kuma sits down beside you. I thought they'd bring back something bigger, she mutters. The sun is starting to dip. Shadows stretch long across the camp. But you see it in their eyes, in the way they clean their blades, in the way they don't look each other in the face. And still no one talks about what happened out there. Something was lost, even if it wasn't a person. You sit in silence for a long time, watching the fire grow, watching the deer vanish piece by piece. You aren't supposed to hear the whispers. They're meant for adults, low and cautious, passed in the crackle of firelight and over pieces of meat too tough to chew. But tonight your ears are sharper than usual. You crouch near the shadows, pretending to inspect your spear stick, while really you're listening. They're going to test him soon, someone mutters. Already, another replies. He's still soft. Couldn't gut a snake without crying. Better he learns now than dies later. You know, the initiation, the test, the thing that looms over every Stone Age child, like a saber-toothed cloud. No one tells you what it is until it's happening. That's part of the ritual, apparently. The fear is intentional. You don't need them to say your name. Kima joins you later, eyes narrowed. They're going to make you do something awful, she says, matter of fact. Eat ants, climb the cliff, fight a badger, whatever the spirits whisper. Like what? You try to act unimpressed. You fail. Your stomach flips like a fish in a dry net. Fact, in many ancient cultures, rites of passage marked the brutal transition from childhood to adulthood. Tests of pain, courage, or endurance. Some tribes used tattoos, others used isolation. Yours, it's more improvisational. Later that night, your father speaks to you, not with words, with a look, a long stare, then a gesture toward the woods. Tomorrow. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling of your shelter, if you can call a patch of hide tied to branches a ceiling. The stars blink through the gaps. The wind whispers things you don't want to understand. You know what that means. Sleep comes slowly, and when it does, it brings strange dreams. You're standing on the edge of a cliff. You hear drums, but no one's drumming. You're holding your little stick spear, and something waits just beyond the firelight it watches. Historians still argue whether these initiations were planned in detail, or mostly spontaneous, crafted by the elders to match each child's personality and fears. Either way, everyone remembers their test, or doesn't survive it. At dawn, you're awake before the birds. You're led away from camp, not far, but far enough that the fires look like distant stars behind you. Your stomach growls. You ignore it. An elder hands you a bundle. Inside, a knife, a strip of dried meat, and a charm made of bone and feather. You're expected to know. You don't ask what you're supposed to do. That's not how this works. Quirky fact. Some evidence suggests prehistoric children were taught symbolic meanings through challenge, being sent alone into nature to find a sign or bring back the voice of an animal. Whether literal or metaphorical, the line blurs fast. Your feet crunch the grass as you step into the trees. Alone. The shadows swallow you, and for the first time in your short life, no one is watching. Not even Kima. The trees are quieter than usual, or maybe it's just you, hearing everything differently now. You clutch the bundle close to your chest as you step deeper into the woods. The knife feels heavy, like it knows something you don't. The dried meat swings from its string with every step. The bone and feather charm, that's for the spirits, you assume, or maybe just to make you feel less alone. It doesn't work. Sunlight cuts through the leaves in thin beams, lighting up clouds of gnats and pollen. You breathe through your nose and keep moving, trying not to think about how far you are from camp, or how quiet it's getting. No birdsong, no wind, just your own footfalls. Then you hear it. The river. It's not far, gurgling softly behind a curtain of vines. You push through, and there it is. Wide, slow-moving, the colour of silver and stone, the kind of place where things hide, big things. You crouch at the edge, filling your hands with water. It's cold, sharp, like a warning. You remember what your grandmother once said, the river doesn't give, it listens. If it gives you something, it's because it wants something back. No pressure, right? You take the bone charm and whisper your name into it, not the sound your tribe calls you, the real name, the one only you know. You tie the charm to a nearby branch and leave it there, gently swaying above the current. Your offering. Fact, many ancient river sites contain what appear to be deliberate offerings, bones, shaped stones, even animal skulls, left behind in ritual, perhaps as tribute or in exchange for safe passage, rain or luck. You sit on a flat rock and eat the dried meat. It's tough, chewy, it tastes like ash and leather. You chew anyway. Then something shifts. Across the water, a ripple. You freeze. The surface breaks. A snout, low and dark, glides just beneath. Not big, not a crocodile, but definitely watching. You don't move. You don't breathe. It disappears again. Kima would call it a spirit animal. Your father would call it lunch. You call it terrifying. You back away from the edge. You spend the next hour gathering wood, carving notches into bark, and drawing spirals in the dirt with your finger. Anything to stay busy. Anything to stop your brain from whispering things like, maybe they left you here. Eventually the sun begins to lower. The light turns gold. The trees stretch taller. The river glows like melted coins. Time to go back. But first you need a sign. Something to prove you've done more than just survive. You scan the riverbank. There. A feather, white with a stripe of black. Not from any bird you've seen before. You pick it up, heart pounding. You tuck it behind your ear and whisper, "You saw me." Quirky fact. Some researchers believe prehistoric people collected tokens from nature to represent personal milestones. First kill, first vision, first escape. These weren't trophies, they were identity. You retrace your steps, following your own footprints back through the brush. They're still fresh, still visible. That means you didn't wander far enough to get lost. That's good, right? When you emerge from the trees, the camp is quiet. They see you. They look for blood, for bruises, for answers. You show them the feather. You don't speak. You don't need to. Historians still argue whether such moments were shared with the community or kept personal, woven into dreams and myths. But in that moment, as the firelight flickers on your face, you feel older, not taller, not stronger, just more you. No one claps. No one smiles. But someone, your father, nods once. And that's enough. Cooking is a battlefield, not because of the fire, not even because of the raw meat or the hot stones or the sharp sticks that somehow always point the wrong way. No, cooking in your camp is dangerous because it involves people hungry, tired, slightly singed people, and you're now expected to help. Your reward for surviving the river is not rest, but a pile of slimy animal guts, and a grunt from your aunt that probably means, stir that before it stirs itself. You sit near the edge of the fire, trying not to gag as someone drops a skinned rabbit still twitching onto a flat stone beside you. The smell hits first. Copper, smoke, hair, something vaguely fishy. Then comes the sound. Sizzle, pop, crackle. The rabbit's spirit escaping in tiny screams of steam. Your job? Keep the fire going, rotate the meat, and not burn the place down. You grab a long stick and poke the fire. Embers jump like fireflies. One lands on your leg. You yelp quietly. No one notices. You poke harder. Nearby, Kima is attempting to prepare some roots by smashing them with a rock. She's mostly succeeding at covering herself in dirt. Your cousin is plucking feathers off something that used to be a bird, but now looks more like a bad idea with legs. Fact, prehistoric cooking methods varied wildly, including roasting on stones, burying food under coals, or boiling in animal stomachs using hot rocks. Today, it's fire and flat stones, and maybe some yelling. A pot, really a hollowed-out log, bubbles with something thick and green. You ask what it is. Your uncle says soup, but he also once called a burnt mushroom a forest pancake, so you're not buying it. Someone hands you a strip of meat. It's charred on one side and raw on the other. You shrug and chew anyway. It's chewy, gamey, and weirdly sweet. Probably not rabbit. You look around at the chaos. Children flinging ash at each other. Adults grunting about seasoning, as if that's a thing. And you feel it. This is your family. This is your world. Messy, loud, mostly edible. Then it happens. Your older brother steals the last cooked piece of meat from the flat stone. You saw it first. You reached for it, He just moved faster. Typical. You launch a pebble at his back. He flinches, drops the meat in the dirt, and turns slowly. You freeze. There is a moment of silence. Then he lunges. You squeal and bolt across the fire circle, dodging hands, smoke, and sharp elbows. Laughter erupts. Someone trips. A stick lands in the soup log. A dog starts barking. Quirky fact: archaeological sites show shared eating spaces surrounded by scorched earth and scattered tools, suggesting that dinner was not just a meal, but a social event filled with noise, motion, and likely the occasional food fight. Eventually, the elders bark enough orders to settle the chaos. You return to your spot, slightly bruised, hair full of ash, mouth still watering, and somehow dinner continues. A woman sings softly as she turns a skewer of lizard meat. A man hums a rhythm as he cracks bones for marrow. A toddler sticks a worm in his nose. Normal. Historians still argue whether cooking was a communal activity or handled by specific members of the tribe. Judging by the current scene, it's both. Everyone participates, and no one is really in charge. As the fire dies down, you suck the last of the marrow from a cracked bone and lean back on your elbows. You're tired, you're dirty, you're full, and for the first time all day, you feel like part of something bigger than just yourself. A tribe, a furnace of chaos and care and firelight. And you're learning to dance in the smoke. The stories always start after the last bone is sucked clean. Once the food is gone, once the embers have dimmed to a soft orange glow, and once the youngest children are dragged off by sleepy mothers or grouchy older siblings, that's when the stories begin. You stay close to the fire, legs crossed, body still, trying to look smaller than you are, so they forget you're still awake. Someone coughs. Someone else passes a skin pouch of fermented something to someone else. Then an elder clears his throat. Tonight, it's Daro. He has 3 teeth, a permanent squint, and a voice like sand scraping stone. When Daro talks, people listen, not because he's wise, though maybe he is, but because his stories always start like accidents and end like omens. He spits into the fire and there were footprints at the edge of the burial ground. Everyone leans in. They were too big to be ours, too wide, with claws. He doesn't say what kind of claws. That's part of the game. Maybe it was a bear, someone offers. Bears don't walk in a circle, Daro replies, smug. He lets the words hang. The flames crackle. You shiver, partly because the wind's picking up, partly because you want to believe it's real. Kima elbows you. Do you think it was a spirit? You nod, or worse, an ancestor. Her eyes widen. She hadn't considered that. Fact, storytelling by firelight was central to early human life. It passed down hunting knowledge, maps, cultural rules, warnings, dreams, and sometimes pure nonsense. But all of it mattered, because stories built identity, and identity meant survival. Darrow moves on to another tale. This one's older, something about a cave that hums when the moon is full, and how once a child crawled in and came out whispering someone else's name. No one speaks during this one. You wonder, was that child real? Was it a warning or an invitation? Then someone else speaks. A woman this time. She starts telling a story about the gods who watch from the stars. They left us here, she says, but they still listen, so don't lie when you talk to the night. You gulp and glance at the sky. It's full of stars tonight, sharp and clear like they've been freshly carved. You look for your bird, the dream one, no sign. Quirky fact, some cave paintings appear to align with star patterns, suggesting that early humans may have seen the night sky as part of their spiritual or mythological system. Stories written in fire and starlight. One of the hunters shares a story next about the first time he saw a wolf up close. and how they stared at each other for what felt like an entire night. He says the wolf spoke, but only in his mind. Everyone nods like that's completely normal. You're starting to believe it is. Historians still argue whether stories in early tribes were mostly factual, moral, or symbolic. The truth, probably all three. It didn't matter if it happened. What mattered was what it meant. Your eyelids are getting heavy. The fire is lower now. Only a few voices still speak. You rest your chin on your knees and let the last story drift over you. Something about a mountain that moves every 100 years. You picture it walking on stone legs, stretching toward the ocean like it's tired of being still. That's the magic of these stories. Even if they're false, they feel possible. And in a world where shadows might whisper, and birds might dream with you, and rivers might take more than they give, anything feels possible. Playtime in the Stone Age doesn't come with instructions, just bones. While the adults wind down from their meal, and the fire becomes little more than an orange yawn, you and the others drift back into your own strange orbit. There are no toys, no game pieces, no screens, just the leftover bits of life, sticks, stones, feathers, scraps of hide, and the occasional skull. Tonight, it's a goat skull. Kima found it near the garbage pit, clean, hollowed out, with 2 teeth still clinging to the jaw, like they've forgotten they're not needed anymore. "Let's make it dance," she says. No one questions it. You tie sinew through the eye sockets. Someone adds beads. Another drapes a rag of red-dyed hide across the top, like a cape. And just like that, your tribe has a new spirit, the Goat King. You parade him around, the fire remains, lifting his bony jaw to the sky as if he's speaking blessings or curses. It's hard to tell. Then someone adds music. Of course, music in your world means 2 rocks and a log with a dent. Someone else joins in with a bark that's definitely not singing, but also isn't not singing. And you start to dance. It's wild and uneven. Feet slap the dirt, arms flail. You mimic animals, cat, hawk, maybe a mammoth, and then Kima jumps in with her best lizard impression, which is mostly sticking out her tongue and crawling sideways. You laugh so hard, you nearly trip on the firewood. Fact evidence from prehistoric cave sites shows ritual objects and musical instruments, like bone flutes, rattles, and drums, suggesting early humans had ceremonies but also joy, and those 2 things were often the same. You stomp, you spin, you lose your balance and fall into a pile of moss, giggling so hard it hurts your ribs. Kima flops down beside you. Do you think the Goat King liked it? You glance at the skull. It hasn't moved. But he didn't hate it, you say. She nods. Good enough. You stay there, side by side, catching your breath, letting the night air cool your sweat. The stars above are brighter now. They always are after a good dance. Quirky fact. Some ancient figurines found near fire pits appear worn down by handling, not just age implying they weren't just sacred, they were played with. Eventually one of the adults calls for quiet, not with words, but with a single low whistle. Everyone freezes, even the Goat King seems to pause. You bundle the bones together and place them near the fire, not too close, just enough that the spirits can still find him. Kima starts humming softly, a lullaby, a prayer. You're not sure, you just listen. Historians still argue whether children's games were mimetic practice for adulthood or just instinctual chaos. You're convinced they're both. Today you danced with death and called it fun. Tomorrow you might carry a real skull, and no one will laugh. But not tonight. Tonight you're a dancer, a lizard, a shadow with feet, and the Goat King smiles in silence. You're not supposed to be awake, but your eyes won't shut, and the night is making promises it doesn't intend to keep. It's your turn on Fire Watch. Not the whole night, just a slice of it. a sliver between your brother's shift and when the sun starts hinting at its return. They said it wouldn't be hard. Just sit, feed the fire a little, listen, don't fall asleep. So here you are, knees pulled to your chest, stick in hand, fire crackling low, shadows doing their slow wriggling dance on the walls of your shelter. You try to focus on the flames, but your ears are busy. Every snap of a twig, wolf. Every breeze that shifts the leaves, snake. Every breath that isn't yours, ghost. You know there's nothing out there, or at least you keep telling yourself that, but then something moves behind the trees. You hear it, a rustle, low and slow. You grab a rock, because that's all you've got. You hold your breath. Nothing comes. You exhale. Fact, in many early human camps, children were given smaller duties to train them gradually into adult responsibility, night watch included. The idea wasn't safety, it was adaptation. You poke the fire and watch it snap back to life. Embers rise like fireflies, trying to escape. You feed it a stick. It pops, then settles. You do this again, then again. It feels like you're holding back the dark with twigs. Kima had fire duty 2 nights ago. She said she saw a man standing just past the trees, not moving, no torch, no sound, just watching. You ask her what she did. I looked back, she said. He wasn't there. Comforting. Quirky fact. Some tribes believed the fire had its own spirit. If you tended it well, it would protect you. If you let it die, well, that was your invitation to things you don't name out loud. So you keep feeding it, even when your arms are tired, even when your eyelids droop. You hum to stay awake. You hum the same 2 notes over and over, like a lullaby for the fire itself. You hope it likes them. The night drags on. One of the elders snores loudly, another coughs. The baby 3 shelters over, lets out a single sharp cry, then goes quiet again, and you're still here. You haven't let the fire go out. You haven't screamed at shadows. You haven't slept. Historians still argue whether these early responsibilities were rites of passage or practical necessity. But in your case, tonight, it's both. Because tomorrow someone will ask how it went, and you'll simply nod. No need to brag. You survived the dark, alone, and the fire still burns. The fire may still burn, but your mind is starting to melt. You're not even sure when you slipped from wakefulness into whatever this is, a dream, a trance, a hallucination caused by too many root vegetables and too little sleep. You blink, and the camp looks different. The sky pulses red, the stars blink in unfamiliar patterns. The flames stretch taller than a man and sway like dancers. You turn your head and see figures in the distance, blurry, slow, not entirely human. Then you realize you haven't moved. You're still by the fire, still holding your stick, still awake in the technical sense. But everything around you is leaning sideways. Shapes shift in the corner of your eyes. The shadows on the wall are talking, but not in words. They hum. One of them stretches long across the ground, its head becoming the shape of a bird. Your bird, the smoke-winged thing from before. It nods to you. You nod back. That feels like the right thing to do. Fact, long exposure to smoke, darkness, hunger, and isolation can lead to mild hallucinations, a natural part of the human experience long before doctors had names for it. For your tribe, these weren't symptoms, they were messages. You look into the fire, and suddenly it feels like falling. Your eyes swim in the orange. You see things. Your father, younger, laughing. A mammoth, stampeding toward nothing. A cave covered in painted hands, hundreds of them, reaching, reaching, reaching. The bird is back. It lands beside you and opens its beak, but instead of sound, it shows you images. A river running backwards, a tree full of skulls, and you, older, holding a spear with feathers tied to the base. Then, just like that, it's gone. You blink again. The fire looks normal. The shadows have stopped whispering. Someone shifts in their sleep. Quirky fact: trance-like states were often induced intentionally in early rituals using firelight, drumming, fasting, or inhaling plant smoke. These altered states were seen as journeys, visions to learn from, not avoid. You press your hand to your chest. It's still pounding. You're not sure what just happened, but part of you feels older, not taller, not smarter, just open. You poke the fire again. This time, the sparks that rise look like birds. You watch them fly. You whisper, "I saw you." No one answers. But maybe something does. Historians still argue whether these experiences were shared or private, whether dream states were real lessons or just side effects of starvation and fear. But here, under the stars, your truth doesn't need a vote. You've seen the fire's language, and you think it liked your humming. Morning doesn't arrive with a trumpet, it creeps in like a thief. Your eyelids are gritty, your neck stiff from sleeping sitting up, and your legs feel like they aged 50 winters overnight. But the fire's still glowing. That means you did it. You made it through the night. The shadows didn't swallow you. The bird didn't come back for your soul. You're still here. You shuffle stiffly to your feet, stretch your arms, and stare at the horizon. The sky is a dull blue, now streaked with pale gold. You can hear someone snoring. Someone else is already stirring water for the day's first soup. It smells like moss and desperation. Then you hear it. 2 men talking just outside the camp. If the mammoths don't come back, we'll have to move. You freeze, not because you don't know what that means, but because you do. Mammoths aren't just food. They're a season, a sign, a promise. Every year they arrive, thunder-footed and slow-eyed, stomping across the plains like the earth owes them something. And every year your tribe follows, hunts, harvests, preys. But this year, too few tracks, too many predators. One of the men mutters something about omens. The other spits into the dirt. Kima joins you, rubbing her eyes. Did they say no mammoths? You nod. Her face falls. But how do we get through winter? You don't answer. You're not supposed to have answers. But still, the question echoes like mammoth footsteps across your brain. Fact, climate shifts during the Upper Paleolithic period meant that large game migrations were unpredictable. Tribes often faced sudden scarcity, and their entire survival strategies had to change quickly, or not at all. You sit beside Kima and pick at a scab on your knee. Nearby, someone sharpens a spear with a little more urgency than yesterday. Another tightens the straps on a pack they didn't wear the day before. Something is shifting. Something big. Quirky fact, some ancient cave paintings show increasing emphasis on smaller game and plant life in periods where larger animals disappeared, suggesting early humans didn't just mourn the mammoths, they adapted. You and Kima walk to the edge of the camp where the lookout sits. He doesn't acknowledge you, just keeps squinting into the distance, hoping the horizon offers better news than the fire pit did. You try to picture the mammoths, their breath like steam clouds, their tusks catching the light, their giant eyes that always seem to know more than they should. You say softly, "What if they're just late?" Kima shrugs, or maybe they're never coming back. Historians still argue whether large animal scarcity caused societal shifts, collapses, or simply migrations. But for your tribe, this is no theory. This is now. This is dinner. This is everything. You help gather wood. You help boil roots. You help without being asked, which is how you know something's different. And as you look around at the quiet adults, the more serious games, the fire that doesn't feel as warm, you realize something. This is the moment where children stop being children. Not because of a birthday, but because of need. And you? You're already beginning to count the horizon. Strangers are rare. Strangers are dangerous. Strangers are everything at once. You hear the dogs first, a bark, sharp, alarmed, then another, then silence. Everyone freezes. Someone shouts from the lookout point, and within seconds, the entire camp springs to life. Spears are lifted, tools become weapons. Even the toddlers stop chewing on rocks. You squint through the trees. There emerging from the mist is a figure. He's not from here. His fur cloak is stitched differently. His face is painted in a pattern you've never seen. He carries a satchel on one hip and something long, wrapped in hide, slung across his back. Not a threat yet, but not nothing either. You stand behind your father, who doesn't move except to widen his stance. The stranger stops just before the fire circle, lifts both hands and drops to one knee. Silence. Then the shaman steps forward. She circles him once, twice, then kneels as well and touches the earth between them. It begins. Not a conversation, not exactly. There are grunts, hand signals, markings in dirt, and the occasional word that almost sounds familiar. You catch trade, you catch south, you catch danger, then you catch his eyes. He looks directly at you and smiles. Fact, prehistoric tribes sometimes interacted with neighboring groups, trading tools, food, or even stories. But each encounter was unpredictable. Friend, foe, future kin, the answer wasn't always clear. Eventually the stranger opens his satchel. Out tumble gifts, dried fish, a curved blade of black glass, and a bundle of feathers dyed red and blue. He lays them out like offerings at an altar. In return, your people offer meat, a bundle of herbs, and flint. The exchange is quiet, respectful, strange. Quirky fact. Some ancient graves show individuals buried with foreign goods, suggesting long-distance exchanges, or that strangers sometimes became family. You step forward slightly. The stranger watches you with calm curiosity. Then, from inside his cloak, he produces a tiny carved figure, an animal, a bird. He holds it out to you. The adults tense, but no one stops him. You take it. It's smooth and warm, carved from bone, with tiny markings on the wings. Not like your bird, but close. You nod. He nods back. Then he leaves. Just like that. You watch him disappear into the trees, as quietly as he came, vanishing like a lesson half finished. Historians still argue whether such encounters were common or rare, but for your tribe, this one will be remembered. They'll talk about it tonight. Around the fire, they'll argue about what the carved bird means. They'll wonder if he was a scout, or a messenger, or something else entirely. But you hold the bird in your palm and feel the world stretch a little wider. Like maybe it doesn't end at the forest's edge. Like maybe there are more fires out there, more names, more stories. And maybe one day you'll walk into someone else's camp, and they'll stare at you like a whisper from the trees. Tonight, the stories feel heavier. The fire crackles softly, faces glow red with its light, and shadows wobble across the dirt like spirits eavesdropping from the edge of the world. No one's dancing, no one's joking. Even Kima is quiet, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes fixed on the flames. The shaman clears her throat. The hums begin, low, droning, ancient, and then she says it. There was once a child. Everyone leans forward, just like you. You freeze. Smart, she continues. Brave, fast with their hands, quick with their feet. But the forest asked something of them they didn't understand, and one day they followed a bird into the trees. You glance at your carved bone bird. It's in your satchel now, but you feel it pulsing like a heartbeat. The shaman speaks slow, her voice blending with the smoke. The child didn't come back. No gasps, No screams, just silence, heavy, thick silence that wraps itself around your neck. They say you can still hear them, laughing, crying, both. If you stand near the old burial stones and listen, you're not sure if it's a warning or a memory, maybe both. In fact, early humans had stories that blurred the line between myth and real loss, tales of children taken by spirits, rivers, or the sky. They weren't just entertainment, they were teeth, lessons sharpened by grief. One of the elders throws a bundle of herbs into the fire. It sizzles and hisses like something trying to speak. A sweet scent floods your nose. Lavender, perhaps, or its Stone Age cousin. Kima whispers, "Do you think that kid was real?" You nod, because of course they were, because you could be next. That's what no one says out loud. That it's not just a story, it's a cycle. Quirky fact: archaeological burial sites for children often include carved animals, shells, and pigment, suggesting that even the smallest lives were honoured with ritual, perhaps to keep their stories alive. The fire shifts, sparks rise like tiny ghosts, and someone else starts singing an old lullaby, one your mother used to hum while braiding sinew or smashing roots. You hum along, soft, unsure of the words, but knowing the rhythm by heart. And as the flames begin to lower, so does your voice. Because the story isn't about the child who vanished, it's about the tribe that remembers. You watch your elders' faces in the firelight, lined, quiet, distant. They've heard this story before, maybe lived it, maybe told it, with someone else's name once etched inside. Historians still argue whether prehistoric tales were meant to preserve memory or simply manage fear. But when you look at Kima's face, at your father's stare, at the bone bird in your satchel, you know it's both. Stories don't just teach, they mark you. You lie back on the ground, staring up at the stars, and wonder what parts of you will be told long after you're gone. And by who? Section 21. You wake up to cold air and questions. Your back aches from sleeping on packed earth. Your neck clicks when you roll it, and your dream, whatever it was, slipped out of your mind like water through cupped hands. But there's no time for that now, because today is packing day. No one says it out loud, but you feel it in the way your father ties the straps tighter on his fur cloak, in how the hunters check and recheck their spears. You hear it in the rhythm of footsteps that move faster than usual. The mammoths didn't return, so neither will you. Your people are preparing to leave, not just for the hunt, for good. You watch as shelters are dismantled, their bones stacked and wrapped. The fire pit is buried. Offerings are left near the trees, charcoal, cracked stones, a handful of berries, gifts for the land you're abandoning. Kima walks beside you in silence, dragging a basket of dried roots. "Will we ever come back?" she asks. You don't answer, not because you don't want to, but because you honestly don't know. Fact: early nomadic humans moved based on animal migration, weather shifts, and resource scarcity. Abandoning a camp wasn't failure, it was adapting. But it also meant leaving behind pieces of themselves. You help carry bundles, tools, hides, clay pots that survived one too many winters. The load bites into your fingers, but you don't drop it, not today. You pass the tree where your bone and feather charm still hangs. You pause. It's faded now, the feathers dulled, the bone stained from rain. You reach up and untie it. You're not leaving that behind. Quirky fact: some tribes believed charms and talismans had to be taken from old places to prevent spirits from growing restless. Others believed leaving them behind honored the land. Your tribe, you carry yours, just in case. Before you go, the shaman marks the earth with one final spiral. "This camp will forget us," she says, "but we won't forget it." You don't know what that means yet, but the words stay with you, The walk begins at midday. Your feet are sore before you even reach the river. The wind bites harder out here, like it's annoyed you're disturbing its territory. The trees thin, the sky widens. You are small again. You turn once. The camp is still visible, a cluster of shadows under trees. Then it's not. Gone. Historians still argue whether children understood the permanence of leaving a home, or if they simply saw it as a new game, a new hill, a new patch of earth to sleep on. But your chest feels heavy, and your palms sting, and your legs are tired. You know what this is. You're not just leaving, you're becoming something else. Someone else. You march in silence, the charm clutched tight in your fist, wondering what tomorrow will ask of you, and if you'll be ready. The road stretches behind you like an old scar. You've walked for hours, maybe days. Time out here doesn't follow the same rules. It moves with your footsteps, breaks when you rest, and folds when you dream. And you've been doing all three over and over again since leaving camp. Your feet are cracked, your shoulders ache, your bundle digs into your ribs. But your eyes are wide, because this new place, the one your tribe has chosen, is different. The grass is taller, almost shoulder high. The hills roll like sleeping giants. The wind carries the scent of animals you haven't hunted before. You hear bird calls that don't belong to your forest, see tracks in the mud that curve in strange ways. Everything is unfamiliar, and that makes you feel alive. You set down your bundle and stare at the clearing your tribe now claims. No shelters yet, just outlines scratched into the soil. The fire circle hasn't been built. The old rhythm is gone, but something new is humming underneath it all. You find a flat stone and sit, watching the adults get to work, digging, tying, building. You know the tasks. You'll be helping soon. But for now, you sit. You reach into your pouch and pull out the bone bird. It still feels warm somehow. You trace your thumb along its wings and hold it to your ear, just in case it still has something to say. It doesn't, but you understand anyway. In fact, some artifacts suggest early humans had generational symbols, tokens, or tools passed down, not just as objects, but as identity. You don't know if your bird was meant for that, but you've decided it will be. Kima joins you. She doesn't speak. She just sits beside you and begins braiding long grass into loops. You watch her hands. You breathe the new air. You listen to the wind. And then you get up, because the first shelter won't build itself. You lift a branch, tie a knot, clear a patch of stone for the fire that will come. You do it like you've done it before, but this time something's different. Because this time, you feel it. You're not just a child now. You're a part of this place, this story. A thread in the long rope of memory. A heartbeat in the tribe. A whisper in the firelight. Historians still argue when a child became an adult in prehistoric society. There was no birthday, no certificate, just moments, stacked and shaped and carved like bone. And this was one of them. You press your hand into the new soil. Your fingers leave a mark. For now. The fire is glowing again. You lie down on a bed of moss and fur, your new shelter low and warm. Outside, the wind rustles the grass. Somewhere nearby, someone hums a tune with no name. The bird is tucked beside you, its wings soft against your ribs. You breathe slow. The sky outside is full of stars. Not the same ones from your old camp, maybe. But stars are stars. They burn in silence. They watch. And maybe, just maybe, they remember. You close your eyes. You feel your heartbeats settle. You hear the faint murmur of stories not yet told, dances not yet danced, hunts not yet run, songs not yet sung. And you know that tomorrow will bring new chores, new aches, new games, new shadows. But for now, you rest. You've survived the day. You've become more than you were, and somewhere deep in the trees, your name, your real name, drifts through the leaves like a breath. Sleep, little hunter. Sleep, little dreamer. You've earned it. Now let the fire dim. Let the wind sing. Let the world go quiet.